Hey, there you go, over there. Way you go, Paul. So I ask each of you to look around. When you talk about the Notre Dame network, it's real. This is it right here, right? So I have the pleasure to introduce to you the 11th Dean of the Notre Dame Law School. From a young age, Marcus knew that he was destined to one day be at Notre Dame. As you will soon hear, he has a terrific Notre Dame story. He will share that story with us soon. Marcus earned his bachelor's degree from Cornell University, his Juris Doctorate from Northwestern. Upon graduating, he clerked for Judge Arnold of the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, and then he worked in Chicago at the firm of Mayer Brown. In 1997, Marcus joined the faculty at Stanford Law, and over the next 22 years at Stanford, he developed an impressive resume and won numerous awards, both international and national, from institutions all around the world. But being a bankruptcy attorney, the most impressive thing on Marcus's resume, he taught bankruptcy law at Stanford. So, Marcus, I'm wondering if maybe after the seminar we could go over the bankruptcy code. There's a few things I still need to learn. Anyway, from the moment I first met Marcus in September of 2019, and he had the honor of coming into a law school right before COVID started, but it's a story for another day, Marcus has demonstrated a tremendous commitment to educating a different kind of lawyer and ensuring that Notre Dame Law School remain one of the premier law schools in the country while staying true to its Catholic tradition. That was very important to him. Both those goals are very important to him. A couple of things of note. Under his leadership, the law school launched the Global Lawyer Initiative to enhance international learning and research opportunities for students and faculty. Probably most important, he created the Religious Liberty Initiative to defend freedom of religion of people of all faiths around the world.
Thank you.
And he opened the Exoneration Justice Clinic to free inmates who were wrongly convicted. Tremendous accomplishments so far.
Thank you.
And just in the conversation that I had with the dean a few minutes ago, most successful diverse class ever at Notre Dame Law School. 33 of the incoming 1Ls are students of color, with 13% being African American. Marcus is deeply committed to diversity and inclusion, and it's certainly proven in the incoming classes. I am pleased to introduce to you the person known on the Notre Dame campus as the Marcus, the Joseph A. Matson Dean and Professor of Law, Dean Marcus Cole. Dean?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you all. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Thank you all so much for being here tonight and welcoming us to this event. The last time this event was held in person was in 2019, just a few days before I started as dean. So this is my first opportunity to join you here at this event, and I'm really grateful that so many people have shown up. I want to introduce Coach Freeman in a second, but since I'm meeting a lot of you for the first time, I thought maybe I should tell you my story as well. And one of the things that you'll find is that Coach Freeman and I have more than just the name Marcus in common. The truth is that it was football that brought both of us to Notre Dame. Me a lot longer ago than him. But I grew up as a kid in the Terrace Village housing projects in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was one of 5 kids in a very Catholic family. And my mom needed us to go out and sell newspapers to help make ends meet. So my older brother and I, my older brother Michael, and I sold newspapers. We sold the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette every morning to help our family make ends meet. But my mom told us we had 2 jobs, not just one. So we sold newspapers, but she also told us that on Sundays our job was to serve as altar boys at Mass at our parish, St. Agnes, which was down the hill from the Hill District. So we did that. 7 days a week we sold a newspaper, and on the 7th day we would sell the newspaper and then go to church and serve as altar boys at Mass. But on fall Sunday mornings, we got up really early, before the sun was up. And we would rush out to be the first kids to get the newspapers, to go sell those newspapers. And then from there, we would rush to St. Agnes to make sure that we were the first 2 kids at Mass, so that we would get to serve as altar boys at that first Mass. Because if we got that first Mass on a fall Sunday morning, we could then rush home to watch the rebroadcast of the Notre Dame football game that was played the day before, with Lindsey Nelson doing the play-by-play. And as Catholic kids, that was our team. And we made a pact as little boys that when we grew up and were old enough to go to college, there was only one place for us, and that was Notre Dame. And so I had the misfortune of having the worst possible older brother you could ever imagine. He was perfect at everything. He finished #1 in his high school class, but not only was he smart, he was popular. He was the class president. He was captain of the soccer team, and he also ran track. So when he applied to college, he applied to one school, Notre Dame, and he got in. And he lived in Holy Cross Hall on the other side of St. Mary's Lake. That's how old it was. But then when it was my turn to go to apply to Notre Dame, I applied to Notre Dame, and I never forget the day I got that letter that I didn't get in. And I was devastated. So I had to gather myself, and I had to go to my fallback school, Cornell University. And I'm glad I went to Cornell because I met my wife there, Angie, and we've been married for, as of next Sunday, we will have been married 34 years. And God had a plan for me. So I went to Cornell and I did well. And then I again applied to Notre Dame for law school. And I got in. I finally got into Notre Dame. But I didn't get any financial aid. And so I couldn't go to Notre Dame. I got a scholarship to go to Northwestern. But I was one of those kids who really wanted to be at Notre Dame, and I couldn't afford it. And so that's why financial aid is so important to me now as a dean, because I don't want another kid who really believes in Notre Dame and wants to fulfill the Catholic mission to not have that chance. So I didn't go to Notre Dame. I went to Northwestern, but I wound up coming back to campus for those football games. I was in that, Angie and I both were in that stadium the night that Tim Brown ran back those 2 touchdowns against Michigan State. We would come back, I would drag her back to that campus for football games. We'd hit the grotto first, go to the game, then hit the grotto to say thank you on the way out. And for years, I was just bringing her to this campus. And I loved, when I started teaching at Stanford, I loved Stanford. I loved living in California, and I loved everything about Stanford. I studied technology law and bankruptcy and failure, and Silicon Valley is the perfect place to study all that stuff. And so I had a great time in California, but I was constantly coming back here to the point where my colleagues at Stanford all thought that I was an alum of Notre Dame. They would bring me people to say, well, if this person's being recruited by Notre Dame and Stanford, tell them what the Notre Dame experience is like. Finally, I got a call from Father John about this job, and we didn't even discuss it. She knew. She knew that this was what I've been waiting for. And then when Stanford was about to announce it one morning that one of their professors was going to be the dean at Notre Dame Law School, we knew that we had to sit down our kids and tell them the story, because if we didn't, they were going to hear it from their friends, and we wanted them to hear it from us. So our kids were teenagers. And I said, we thought that we were going to tell them, and they were going to think, how does this affect us? But that's not what happened. We told our sons, we sat them down in the living room, told them that I was going to be the next dean of Notre Dame Law School. And my oldest son, the first words out of his mouth were, "Dad, isn't it amazing that God has finally given you the thing you've wanted all your life?" And it's true. I'm living my dream. And so I can't believe that I get to now introduce the head coach of the Notre Dame football team. There is no other dean in America who has my job. So I want to introduce to you my namesake, Coach Marcus Freeman. So Coach Freeman is the 30th Dick Corbett head coach of the University of Notre Dame Fighting Irish football team. And he was appointed to that position by President Father John Jenkins on December 3rd, 2021. In his first season with the Irish as the defensive coordinator, Coach Freeman led a transformation of the Irish defense. We ranked 7th in the nation in defensive touchdowns, 4. I think half of those came against Wisconsin. We're 10th in takeaways with 25, and 10th in third down conversion percentage, 12th in the nation in sacks with 41, 15th in interceptions with 15, and 15th in scoring defense. In fact, the 41 sacks equaled the all-time Notre Dame team record set back in 1996. Prior to Notre Dame, Coach Freeman served for 4 seasons as the defensive coordinator for the University of Cincinnati Bearcats. And at Cincinnati, Coach Freeman was named the 2020 Defensive Coordinator of the Year by 24/7 Sports. And he was nominated 3 consecutive times for the Frank Broyles Award for the best assistant coach in all of college football. And he was a finalist for that award in 2020. That year, Cincinnati finished with a 9-1 record and won the American Athletic Conference Championship and topped it off with a trip to the Peach Bowl. Prior to Cincinnati, Coach Freeman spent 4 years as a linebackers coach at Purdue, and then 2 years before that as a linebackers coach at Kent State, after starting his coaching career as a graduate assistant at his alma mater, Ohio State. As a player at Ohio State, Coach Freeman set the standard. He was a 4-year letter winner, earning second-team All-Big Ten honors in 2008 while leading the Ohio State Buckeyes to 4 Big Ten conference titles, 3 BCS Bowls, and 2 trips to the national championship game. He also graduated from Ohio State in 2007 with academic All-Big Ten honors and earned his master's degree in sports management from Ohio State in 2011. And after playing in the 2009 Senior Bowl, he was drafted in the 5th round of the NFL draft by the Chicago Bears, and he spent time with the Bears, the Buffalo Bills, and the Houston Texans during his NFL experience. Coach Freeman and his wife Joanna have 6 children: Vinny, Sienna, Gino, Nico, Capri, and Rocco. And I want to introduce to you Coach Marcus Freeman of the Fighting Irish. Thank you. So, Coach,
that's a long introduction.
I know. They asked for it, though, so sorry. We really want to know more about you. We want to know about your experience getting to Notre Dame and your background and how you went from being a player coach and why you chose to come to Notre Dame when you were so successful at Cincinnati.
Yeah, I was the typical kid that wanted to play for national champions and go to the NFL. And I was able to play for 2 national championships that we lost, and then went to the NFL. And at some point, for all these kids, football's over. I tell them there's one guarantee in this game of football, and it's going to end. And for me, it ended, and I got right into coaching. I didn't know if I wanted to be a coach. I thought I wanted to be an athletic director. But when I stopped playing, right away I said, no, I want to try this coaching thing because I loved being around the guys. I loved the game of football. And then you quickly learn, for me, you got your greatest satisfaction by seeing young people have success. Right? That's what really helped me as a coach truly understand why I coach, is to see young people succeed. And so I never was a guy that said, hey, I want to be the head coach anywhere. I did want to be a head coach at some point, but I never was a guy that kept searching for jobs. I just tried to work as hard as I could where I was at. And all of a sudden, we do really well at Cincinnati, as you had said, and you're presented with an opportunity to, make a life-changing move. And obviously, that was the decision to come to Notre Dame. But people asked, why'd you choose Notre Dame? There was many different places I could have gone. And what I did is the same thing I tell our recruits. I looked long-term first. I said, I want to be a head coach at some point. And what university would help me get to that point better than anywhere else in the country? And I knew that was at the University of Notre Dame. And that's why I chose to come here. And 9 months later, here we go.
Yeah. Well, we're grateful that you made that choice. But tell us, so your first game as the head coach of Notre Dame is now going to be against your alma mater.
Really?
And like, what are you thinking?
Well, I learned last week you better be really careful about the things you say in that game. And so I will. We are really going to, what better way to see what type of team you have than play an unbelievable opponent. Right? We know the history, the tradition of that place is truly second to none. And it's truly second to none. And so what better way for us to see where we're at game one, right, versus a great opponent like that. But that can't be the focus for us this summer. That can't be the focus for us today. The focus for us today is say, okay, we have this group. We have this roster. And there's a certain level that we can get this talent to play at, right? And our job is to develop that talent, to get it to the point that at September 3rd, we're as close to this maximum level that we can be. And then you go play. You got to go play the game. And then once that game's over, you start preparing for the next one. And so we can't put too much pressure on ourselves or too much into this game because it's one of 12 guaranteed opportunities. So it's going to be really exciting for our players to have a great environment, to play a big opponent like Ohio State on prime time. But right now our focus has to be about us, and it has to be about developing this current group that we have.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about the current group that you have. The headlines during the whole offseason has been about how you've really broken all records when it comes to recruiting. I mean, you've assembled from week to week. It's either been the number 1 or the number 2 recruiting class in the country. What are you doing differently that hasn't been done at Notre Dame before?
I don't know what has been done in the past. I focus on us, and I always tell our staff, I said, number 1, it starts with a belief in what you're selling, right? And I truly believe that we're offering young people a chance to come to a place and open doors that nowhere else in the country can in terms of what you can do in terms of football excellence and then with academic excellence. And nowhere else in the country, I believe, can offer young people this opportunity that we have. And you have to believe that in your heart to sell it. But then you got to lean on your staff. We have an unbelievable staff, and it's, you know, there's a lot of great things that I'll just speak. I'm good. There's a lot of great things that come about with being the head coach that you get a lot of credit for. Hey, the way you're recruiting your class, but we have a staff that's unbelievable. And they are all recruiting, and I tell them every day we would not be in this position without. Yep.
Sit on.
Hold on one second. All right, we're good. So what I tell them is that we wouldn't.
There we go.
What I tell them is that, hey, listen, here we go. We could not be in this position without a great staff. And so part of being a head coach is you do get a lot of credit when things go well, but you get a lot of blame when things don't go so well. And so it's a part of it. But I would not do our staff a service if I'm sitting here taking the credit. Our staff does an unbelievable job, but it still starts with the belief in the product you're selling.
But the product you're selling is also a complex one because not every kid is going to be able to come to Notre Dame and sell it. So how do you find those kids who can do the academic work as well as what you're looking for on the field?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's easy to go to profile schools and say, okay, hey, he's at a private school.
he'll die to go to Notre Dame. He understands the value of this education. Whereas we have an approach right now. Let's find the best players in the country, no matter where they're at. Let's find the best players in the country. Then it's our job to evaluate, is this person a fit for Notre Dame? Through many different ways, right? It can be transcript. It can be interviews. It can be communication with your coach. It can be admissions meeting. And we have a director of player personnel, Dave Peloquin, that will interview him. But there's checks and balances that takes out the emotion that maybe a coach would have that says, hey, is this kid the right fit for Notre Dame? But I don't want to go and find a kid and say, okay, I know he's the right fit. Is he a good football player? I want to say get the best football players in the country, and let's figure out, is this person the right fit, and let's go recruit him.
Okay, that makes sense. But now with the big changes that have come to college football over recent years, you've got the transfer portal and you've got name, image, and likeness. How does that change the way you go about recruiting and also coaching?
I'll start with NIL. Well, the first thing NIL does, it helps you kind of expedite the process in terms of recruiting. And when I say that, it's that I ask kids, usually in one of those very first conversations, is NIL going to be the reason why you choose a school? If they say yes, I'm going to say this ain't the place for you. And I walk away. Because we don't want kids that only value NIL, right? We want kids to come here that understand what this degree can do for the rest of their life, but also understand that if you're going to be bought, if you're going to be bought to go to a university and play for a football team, then I worry about how good that football team's going to be. You know, I tell these guys all the time, you're going to come and play for an unbelievable football program. If you do the things you're supposed to do and you become a great player, you can benefit off of your name, image, and likeness here with our brand better than anywhere else in the country. But it still starts with you becoming a great football player and then being a part of a great team, then benefit off your name, image, and likeness. If you're going to choose a school because of what you think you can make, Notre Dame's not the place for you. And so I addressed that right away. As far as the transfer portal, it has been a huge positive for us. For some other schools, maybe not, I don't know. For us, it's been a positive because the majority of our kids, they value the education. And so if kids are leaving Notre Dame to get into the transfer portal, the majority, especially the football players, they have their degree and then they're going somewhere else to say, okay, I want to play more. And that's what it's for. That's great that you can get your education and you can go into the transfer portal to find a place where you know what, you can play the game you love. With bringing guys into Notre Dame, it isn't that easy. And we understand that. And we also value our admissions. We value the degree. And so we have to find the right fit. We found one this year with Brandon Joseph, who transferred from Northwestern. And again, he was an All-American at Northwestern, did an unbelievable job there, and decided to go in a transfer portal. Well, we said that kid, he can be admitted into Notre Dame, and he was, and he's been doing a great job.
Is there anything that the university needs to do differently as far as timing of admissions to help you with that?
We've had discussions. I think the university is trying to help find solutions, and I think the biggest thing is we're looking to expedite the process of getting young people admitted, because right now the deans of the schools, right, and the programs that they're looking to get into, they have to go through their checks and balances to see, hey, can we admit them? How many credits will transfer over? So we're trying to expedite that process because everything happens fast. If a kid gets into the portal, he wants to know where he's going soon. So for us to evaluate that transcript, we're trying to say, how can we expedite this process? And that's something that we're all working together to accomplish.
All right. When it comes to the transfer portal, does it change the way you approach coaching? Because now every football player is like a free agent, and they essentially can say, well, if the coach isn't treating me right, I'm out the door.
Yeah, it doesn't change the way I coach. It reaffirms the way I coach. And that's what I believe in, is that you can push players to the amount that they trust you. So continue to work on trust, and you'll be able to push these guys. It won't be a defense mechanism. They won't go to the portal because you're being too hard on them. Why? Because you've worked so hard at building trust, right? And I tell our kids all the time, I was with Lou Holtz last week, and he said, my players would never call me a player's coach. And I just said, okay. I said, all right. I get where you're going with this one, Coach. But I told him, along with everybody else, that I am a player's coach. Well, what does that player's coach mean? Is that there's no great coaches without great players. I'm here to serve our players. What does that mean? It means you set standards, you hold them accountable to standards, but you can also tell them you love them, right? I tell our players all the time, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to push you to places you never thought you can go, and it's going to be really hard. And guess what? After we're done, I'm saying, I love you, man. Let's go. I love you. And so I am a player's coach. I live through my players. I love my players, and I wouldn't be doing this without the players.
Yeah. That's inspiring. I'm going to start to think of myself as a lawyer's dean. I love you guys. I want to ask you a little bit about the role of the Catholic mission at Notre Dame. Do you see it playing any role in the way you shape your team, or is it something separate, or how do you integrate it?
Yeah, we truly embrace our spirituality. We have Mass, obviously, which we're going to do on game days now, and that was important to me to change. A big reason I changed that because I remember, one, being a recruit and seeing the players come out of Mass right before the game, a couple hours before the game, and I just said, that was just a thought that I will never forget, right? A moment that I'm like, that is amazing. And then you can see it in different movies. But, you know, you think about any of us that had played sports or were in athletics, you think 2 hours or 3 hours before a contest, your emotions, you're so vulnerable. And I said, what better time to have Mass than that moment when the hearts and the minds and the spirits are so vulnerable. I want to have Mass at that moment. I want to be as closest to God as we can. And so that was a big reason why I did it. The other part of that is we embrace spirituality. That's what this university is built on. And you know, not all of our players are Catholic. That's okay. But we're going to talk about Jesus Christ. We're going to talk about our faith, and we're going to be outspoken about it. And hopefully what that does is it helps those that are already Christians grow in their faith, but also it creates questions for maybe those that aren't. You know, hey, coach, player, anybody, talk to me about your faith. And so what we're trying to do is continue to help everybody grow or answer questions of our own or for others.
That's fantastic. So when you think about the future of college football, there are all kinds of changes coming. What are the things that are changing that concern you? I mean, we hear these things about expansion of the playoffs. You know, the bowl season might now be like 3 or 4 weeks long after you finish a 12-game season. What are the other things that concern you or that you embrace about the changes that are happening?
I'm definitely not concerned about the expansion of the playoffs. That would be a good thing. That would definitely be something that I support. You know, now how to figure that out and how to not undervalue the bowl games is something for people that are above me that they can figure those things out. But I do support expansion of playoffs and giving teams and schools and programs opportunities to compete for national championships. And I think that's something that I'm fully in support of. You know, I think I don't want to lose, and I hope we don't lose the meaning of being a student athlete, in that we're still trying to teach young people that education matters. And if we continue to make decisions based on NIL and throw crazy amounts of dollars at these kids before they ever have done anything, I think we lose the element of what the education does for you. And that's what I want our young people to understand, and especially ones I recruit, that the game of football is going to end before you know it. And if you don't value education and you don't understand what this education can do for you when you're done playing football, then we've done you a disservice. And so what I try to do with our players, continue to remind them the privilege they have to go to a place like Notre Dame. And what that does is it encourages them to continue to compete in the classroom, continue to work hard, because in football they're going to go. They love football. They want to be first-round picks. But sometimes they need encouragement to work as hard in the classroom as they do on the football field. And so I think it's a great reminder, continue to remind our players, these recruits, of the privilege it is to be at Notre Dame, but also what a degree in the wisdom that you're gaining can do for your future. And so I don't want to lose that aspect in college athletics of being a student athlete and understanding this is about education along with playing competitive sports.
Well, that's fantastic. I want to open it up now, if it's okay, to questions from the audience, if we may. If there is anyone out there with a question for Coach Freeman? Yes.
How do I feel about the offensive line?
Chris, do you have do you have any more eligibility?
Coming from an offensive lineman, I love it, huh? Listen, we made a unbelievable hire in hiring Harry Heastan, and I mean, the changes to our offensive line, the progression, I guess I want to say, of our offensive line from when he's got here till now has been amazing. And the players that come back that he's coached to see him or be around our offensive line has been great. They're going to continue to get better, right? Where that ceiling is, that's to be determined. But I am extremely excited about our offensive line, and we have to be a program that relies on our offensive line. That's something that Notre Dame's been built on, the ability to control the line of scrimmage, and we will continue to do that this year.
Are you going to continue to have a role in coaching the defense going forward?
I'm going to have a role in all aspects of the football program, of all aspects of what we do schematically, but I can't be the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, the special teams coordinator, because I'll do that part of football a disservice. You know, I look at, hey, what's going to be my best value is to help with situational football, to be able to make decisions on close games and in crunch times about decisions that will help us, you know, and really analytical stuff. I'm going to be involved with offense and defense and special teams because it's my job as head coach to know exactly what we're doing. I'm going to be able to give input and give my opinion, but I want to empower the great coaches that we've hired to do their job, and I've been really, really pleased.
Well, I'm going to borrow that answer when someone asks me if I'm going to teach class anymore. Are there any other questions?
What do you feel like your greatest challenge is going to be this upcoming season?
The greatest challenge to me is getting this team to play at its maximum potential. And I don't know where that is yet, right? And that's going to be the challenges. How do we, I said it earlier, how do we continue to develop this roster so that when they go play those 12 guaranteed opportunities, they're playing at the highest level they can possibly play at. If that's good enough to win every game we play, great. But if it's not, it's okay. We have to just focus on getting this team to perform on those 12 guaranteed opportunities at the highest level it can, and that's a daily challenge for us.
The best part of it is that you're going to get to pick your team. Like you have Hamilton gone, you have the quarterback gone, so these are all your guys. You're going to build your team.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One question here.
Just, I heard what you did with the players to help prep for them beyond football, right? As less than 1% make it. Could you just explain all that again, just to rehear what you've been doing?
Yeah, it started off with, again, it's all about serving your players, my current players, these guys that are here. You want to help, again, I tell them all the time, I'm your head coach for the rest of your life, right? And we're always going to be in a relationship. So I want to make sure I'm doing things to help them as they move forward in life. And so one of those things was to invite all the former players back. One was to serve our players, but two was to, this is the house that they've helped build, right? We're standing on a foundation built by all those that have come before us. So we opened the doors to all of our former players that come back for the spring game. We called it the Legacy Weekend. And what I did on the Thursday before that game on Saturday is I put all 300 former players and 100 current players in a room. And I said for 2 hours, I don't want to talk about football. I don't want to talk about how to become a great football player. I want to talk about the moment the game is done and decisions and things our young people can learn right now while they're chasing their dreams, while they're pursuing those dreams. They can learn valuable lessons that will help them as they transition out of the game of football when it ends. And so that is something that's so important to me is take care of your players now. While they're chasing their dreams, they can continue to learn about life after football, and one of those things is bringing those former players back. it's not that easy. It's not a magical formula that you can say, if we get this, we win. If that was the case, a lot of people would be national champions. But it's the development of the guys you have, right, and the ability to challenge everything. That's something we have that's a part of our culture, challenge everything. How do we find a better way to do it? How do we find a better way to recruit, right, to get the best players in the country? If that means that we have to get something, we got to get a brand new facility. We got to get a brand new set of jerseys. We got to get something to help us be the best recruiters in the country, then I'm going to push Jack Swarbrick and Father John, hey, these are things we need. But we have the things in place right now that I believe can help us get the best players in the country, that we can continue to develop our current players to be the best players they can be. And we're always going to look for ways to challenge everything, to find better ways. If it's nutrition, let's challenge everything. Let's find a better way. But what I don't want to do is say, if I had that, we would be national champions, because then I'm making excuses for what I have currently, and I don't want to do that.
Congressman King.
Great presentation. With the NIL, what strictures do you think have to be in place to monitor that, to make sure it's not abused by colleges around the country? I'm not talking about Notre Dame. I'm talking about generally. To me, it seems so susceptible to abuse.
Yeah. All right, let me. I gotta say the right. Okay. NIL is not allowed to be used as an enticement to come to a school. If that is occurring around the country, then that's wrong, and it has to be monitored and it has to be changed. Notre Dame's not doing that. I don't know about everybody else. I'll just talk about Notre Dame. I've learned to just talk about Notre Dame, and that's all I'm going to talk about. But we cannot entice student athletes to come to Notre Dame with NIL. We can't guarantee you, hey, you're going to make this amount of money, or we're going to give you this amount of money to come to Notre Dame. That is against the NCAA rules. And so we have to find out if other schools are, the NCAA's job, not my job, the NCAA's job is to find out if other schools are doing that. And if they are, then we have to try to stop it at some point.
So there's a question back here.
When you're figuring out if a recruit is a good fit culturally, how involved are the players in that process? Whether
Great.
hosting a kid on their official visit or their unofficial visit, like, because there's so many guys on the team, so there's only so much you could get to know someone in like a polished conversation.
That's a great question. And it's a thorough process, right? And there's two different things that we can do. Somebody's going to tell you the truth about that kid. Somebody will. And it's our job to figure out who. I don't care if it's the coach. I don't care if it's the assistant coach. It's the secretary. It's the janitor. Find somebody that will tell you the truth about that kid. Usually when everybody says he's a great kid, you want him. He's a great kid, you want him. He's a great kid, you want him. Well, guess what? He's probably a really, really great kid and you want him. But the other part of that is our player host. We had a conversation. So we had 25, we probably had close to 30 official visits in the month of June. So we meet with our hosts before they host them and say, this is your university. This is your football program. You should be opinionated on who we bring into our football program. And I'm not talking about how good of football players they are. If you have a feeling that he is not going to be the right fit here, his character, his actions, some of the things he says is not going to fit with some of the values we have, your job is to tell us as a coaching staff so we protect our football program. So we value that feedback tremendously.
There's a question back here.
How would you best describe the importance of retaining Coach Reese, especially the impact he has on Tyler and Drew in particular, a backup quarterback at one point in himself, coming into huge games? If you look at Drew Pine last year, coming into the Wisconsin game, and even the Cincinnati game, just what he instills in the quarterback specifically.
I mean, Tommy Reese brings so much to our football program. The ability, he was the first guy that I was going to try to say, hey, can we keep Tommy Reese? You know, I know firsthand going against him every day as the defensive coordinator, the offensive mind he has. But not only is it his mind, but it's who he is as a leader, right? The way he leads young people, who he is as a recruiter, the way he's able to recruit, and who he is as a teammate with the coaching staff, right? He's a great teammate for the coaching staff. And he understands what Notre Dame's all about because he's done it and he's lived it. And he's going to protect this program because this is his program, right? He's helped build this program to where it is. So I couldn't speak more highly of Tommy Reese and what he's brought to our staff and what he's going to do, obviously, in the future.
John.
Hey, Coach, if you look back in history over football, college, or NFL, are there any coaches you look to as role models for you in your leadership?
There's two guys I would say. One is Jim Tressel. He was my college coach at Ohio State, and still to this day, he's been amazing for me, somebody that I can lean on and call on and get an honest opinion. The other one, it really happened last week when I was with Lou Holtz. And all I would say is this, is when you're, I don't know, when was his last game at Notre Dame? 96. So you're talking 20, 30 years removed from coaching these young people. And you have 60-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds coming up to you at a dinner and saying, Coach, I love you. It's great to see you. That reminded me this is what it's about, right? This is what it's about. It's about serving your players for the rest of your life and being in a relationship for the rest of your life. I hope a result of that is winning a national championship because our players want that. So I want to make sure I do everything in my power to help our players get that. I want it for the University of Notre Dame because it deserves it. But it's about the relationships with young people, and that relationship will last for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Coach, you probably made a lot of people in this room happy with the successful recruitment of C.J. Carr for obvious reasons. Can you speak a little bit about that? Do you think, or is that prohibited by NCAA rules?
Yeah, I can't speak about any prospect, but we're really happy with our recruiting at quarterback position. And I'll leave it there.
We had a question back here.
What's Coach Dressel up to nowadays? Is there an analyst role in his future?
Coach who?
Tressel.
Oh, I would die to have him. He would run as fast as he can. If I asked him to be an analyst, ain't no way. I'm going to retire here before I know it. He said, listen, you think being a college football head coach is difficult? Try being the president of a university. He said, I'm ready to retire here before you know it. And, I don't know when it's going to be when he retires, but I know he's going to run to Florida as fast as he can.
Yes.
Coach, we talk a lot about statistics and recruiting rankings, but if you had to describe the team, I know you're still developing them. If you had to describe them going into this first game, what we should think of them about, what would be the one thing you would expect us or want us to know?
I would want them. We have this culture, right? And we call it the golden standard. And this is what I want to be the description of our team. Number one, I said it earlier, challenge everything. So what does challenge everything mean when you look at a football team? You talk about a tough, a physical, a team that's aggressive on offense and takes shots and they can run the ball. But on defense, you know what? They're aggressive, they're pressure, we're not passive. So challenge everything in terms of football. I hope that's what you see as a tough, aggressive football team. The second part of that is unit strength. What does unit strength mean? It means love. It means selfless sacrifice for the man next to you. So how does that look in football? It's in the fourth quarter, those guys are going as hard as they can. No matter how tired they are, they're going to go hard. But also it's unselfish penalties. I hope you see a disciplined football team that is not making selfish penalties because I can't jump off sides or I can't false start because I'm depending on the man next to you. I can't make a selfish mistake, hit somebody late out of bounds because I care about the man next to you because nobody's worth 15 yards of selfish penalties. And the third thing is the competitive spirit, right? And that's a refusal to lose. So what does that mean in terms of how you see our football team? It's a team that no matter what the score is, no matter how high you're up, how low you are, it doesn't matter. Every play we're competing to win. Every single play, and that won't stop until the whistle ends the game.
Are there any other? Right here.
Yeah, obviously, I watch every down of Notre Dame football. I'm certainly not a football expert, but got to know your defense a little bit through watching, 12, 13 games last year. And then I saw you hired Al Golden, and maybe thought this is an interesting hire because they don't do things or think schematically, perhaps, exactly the same way. I was curious if you could just talk a little bit about your thought. I mean, and I know in the press you've talked about having several conversations with him, but what it's like being a defensive-minded head coach and bringing someone in who's been a head coach, who's gone to the Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator, and perhaps has other views on certain parts of the defense than maybe you would.
He hasn't been a defense coordinator for a while, so he was a linebackers coach in the NFL, and we do have similar philosophies in terms of what we think it takes to have success on defense, and that was important to me, in that I hire somebody that is aligned with my big picture thoughts on how to have success on defense. Another part of challenge everything that I brought up earlier is how do we find better ways, and Al Golden is going to be a way to help us find a better way to play defense, and he's got a brilliant mind. He understands it's still about players and putting them in positions to have success. He's enhanced what we've done defensively, and I'm really excited. So as Dean Cole read off all those defensive stats from last year, I think he's going to make the defensive coordinator look pretty bad this year.
We have another question right here.
Coach, how do you find the ability to balance your duties as a head football coach for the first time, as well as having a wife and 6 kids? I can barely manage the law practice.
When I figure that out, I'm going to let you know.
Yes, we have a question here.
Yeah, I'm one of the few people in the room who's been at one of these alumni events here. And Coach was here a number of years ago. And after tonight, he's number 2 attracting the largest crowd we've ever had.
Thank you.
Well, I think I speak for everyone in this room. I know you're happy with your success at recruiting at the quarterback position. I think I speak for everyone when we say we're really happy at our success at recruiting at the coaching position. We have a gift for you. So this is an old photograph of a game that was played, I believe, at at the Polo Grounds here in New York between Notre Dame and Army in 1924. And we want to give this memento of New York and Notre Dame football to you. Thank you for doing this for us.
Listen, I don't have something as cool as that.
Oh.
This is on behalf of me and what you do for our university, but also our football program. So I can't thank you enough for your support.
Oh, thank you, Coach. Thank you. I really appreciate this. He's been to my office, so he knows how much this means to me. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. All right.
Thank you, guys.